tryna say I'm only in the meeting. Got a code with my dogs, can get in between. I can give them life, no more energy. Amen. Amen.
The playoffs are heating up, and we're about to as well. We got 2 games today, both elimination games. Game 6, we got the Knicks and Pistons as the first game of the day, and then we also have the Nuggets and Clippers as the next game of the day. I mean, obviously it's game 6, so these have been competitive, but they've also been extremely entertaining. Probably the 2 most entertaining playoff series as a whole throughout the course of these playoffs. So they've been kind of ugly for sports betting, most because of like people who are coaching and the types of offense, defense running. But just for basketball lovers like me and JJ here, they've been good to watch. So JJ, how are we feeling about these 2?
I don't think a lot of shot. Well, there's gonna be a lot of shots going up in the first game, but probably not a lot of point scores similar to like those Houston and Warriors series. Nobody's taking a lot of threes for the most part. They've been trying to get to the free throw line, slow it down, but it looks like this referee crew doesn't like to really call fouls. So this should be interesting for Jalen Brunson, who likes to, hunt for fouls.
It's good.
I guess we'll have
Hopefully
to do it the hard way, which we can't act like he can't get a bucket the hard way because he's great at doing it. He just doesn't want to.
No, I think that game 4, I can't remember if he had 12 or 15 points in the fourth quarter, but not a single one of them was from free throws. They were all just buckets. So
he can go get a bucket. He just doesn't want to sometimes.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of Jalen Brunson foul baiting, we can get into Austin Thompson as a defender because I don't want to say he's figured Jalen Brunson out because obviously Jalen Brunson is still capable of getting 30 however he wants to get it on most defenders in the NBA. But you can tell he's learning more and more how to defend Jalen Brunson. Those pump fakes and jabs that he fell for a lot through the first 2-3 games of the series, the last 2 games he hasn't been falling for it all. He's held his ground. He's staying in front really well and basically forcing Brunson to make his shots rather than beating him or getting to the line. So that's become something that it's been nice to keep our eye on. And he closed last game over Dennis Schroeder, partly because of that. He defended Brunson really well. It'll be interesting to see what JB Bickerstaff does this game if he kind of repeats that.
Yeah, and it's like when you look at defense as well, you got to look at the Tobias Harris versus Cat matchup. He had 51 partial possessions defending Cat, and I think that's absolutely insane for one game. I can't remember the last time you've seen someone have 50 plus possessions against somebody. And, Tobias, who was very hell-bent on not switching off him like he should, was no foul trouble. And just like as I talked about earlier, probably won't be much foul trouble in this game considering the refs don't like to blow their whistle for this crew. So I think Cat may be in for a long one. I mean, he shot 2 of 10 against him in that last game. And I can't remember exactly what he has overall in this series. But I think it's like 200 plus possessions and like 12 or 31 shooting overall. So it's been a tough one for him. I mean, I don't know how much Cat's going to do. I think it's going to be a lot of Jalen Brunson here just having to do it the hard way. Hopefully OG and Mikal can step up. But I think overall it's just going to be a defensive game here.
The craziest thing about the Tobias Harris stat about him defending him for 51 possessions, their minutes don't stack up.
No.
Cat leaves to end the first quarter. Tobias Harris plays most of the first quarter. Tobias Harris, I guess they both played the full second quarter and most of the fourth. So there is that. But obviously Detroit won the last game. It was real close. What was very interesting to see, kind of funny considering the circumstances of them like being comfortably up 3-1, is that Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart came out of the game with like 4 minutes left. They tried to come back in the game with 3 minutes left. The Knicks only had 1 timeout, so they couldn't call a timeout to get him in the game. And they didn't have a foul to give, so they couldn't foul to get them in the game and get a dead ball. There wasn't a dead ball until 40 seconds left in the game. So for 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the final 3 minutes, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart couldn't get back on the court, and it was like a 4-point game. So who knows if that ended up being like a big decider for how that fell out. It probably did. But another potential decider that I've been quite aggressive about is Cade Cunningham and his turnovers. Because if you look back at the games Detroit won and lost, a big correlating factor is whether Cade Cunningham is taking care of the ball or not. And all these games are being decided by 1 or 2 possessions for the most part. So when you have a guy that's getting 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 turnovers, each of those turnovers could be 5, 6 point swing potentially. And when you're losing games or winning games by 2 or 3 points, each one of those turnovers could make the difference in the game. So last game, he only had 5 turnovers, which actually brought his average down for the series. And they won by 1 possession. That'll be another thing to keep an eye on because the Knicks actually blitzed him more heavily last game than they did other games. And that's why we see Jalen Duren. He had 6 assists last game because he was playing in the 4v3 once Cade gave it to him in the short roll. I will say I don't expect the Knicks to do that again. Coming off a game where they lose is where you always expect more adjustments. But also, you don't need to pick Cade up 40 feet from the basket. That's not where he shoots from. He doesn't shoot it like Trae Young and Steph. Not necessarily efficiency. Like that's a whole other conversation, but
It's just not his game.
different type of shot than pulling up from where the 3-point line actually is. So it just seemed like, yeah, I get it. Gets the ball out of his hands, but you can basically be in like a drop where you're just standing at the 3-point line. And it's going to have the same effectiveness. It doesn't put you in the 4v3 situation, and they weren't forcing turnovers in it anyways. So
Yep.
I like the thought, but it just didn't play out like I think they wanted it to, and I don't know why they'd go back to it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I don't think they'll go back to it. Maybe just not as much as what they did. They'll probably mix it in here and there just because, it's just what they do. But, I would try and force these role players to knock down shots, honestly. But yeah, K's not going to shoot the 3 ball. The most he's taken in this series so far is like 5 in a game. And had one game where he made 2 threes. So I wouldn't really rely on him as a 3-point shooter. So obviously, going back to what you were saying, play a little bit closer to the 3-point line when you're trying to blitz him, as compared to at half court, or just do that drop like you said. Just have that defender, the roll man defender at the 3-point line, just waiting. I think Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris. Someone has to help Tobias Harris out, honestly, as far as the role player scoring. Tobias Harris has done a very good job on both ends of the court. Much better player than Paul George so far this year. Maybe they made a mistake there, but it is what it is.
I mean, I think if I'm the Pistons, Tobias Harris is cool getting 10 to 15 for us. But if I'm Big Seth saying, hey, whatever points you can give us, great. As long as you can keep Cat under 25 points, use up all your energy you need on your defensive end, we'll draw up plays for Malik and Hardaway and Dern in the pick and roll and Schroeder. I don't think you want to lean on Tobias Harris as your secondary scorer in a matchup where limiting Cat is such a big priority, because in most matchups, he's not going to have nearly as big of a defensive role as he will in this one.
Yeah.
So that if I'm them, I'm setting down screens for Malik Beasley. I'm doing slip screens in a pick and roll with Hardaway, trying to get Brunson involved, and it'll probably free up Hardaway. Duren, obviously attacking that drop when it is there as an alley-oop threat. I'd focus a lot more on that, and then obviously when those buckets do come for Tobias Harris, obviously he takes them. That's not what I'm saying. But it shouldn't be him as your secondary scorer, knowing what the matchup is, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, but offensively, it does make sense because Mikal Bridges is his primary defender, and his size and strength will easily take advantage of that in the paint.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do need your shooters to step up. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley. Beasley did call out Mikal Bridges, so we'll see if he steps up his game.
Dude, I feel like usually Malik does back it up. So I am excited to see him step up. He has lost his rotation in the closing lineup in the fourth quarter in this series. I think it was there in games 1 and 2, but then 3, 4, and 5, he hasn't gone over 26 minutes. I don't think there's a game plan coming in per se. I think it's a lot more of we're going to see how the game goes and see what lineup makes sense to close the game because it's been different almost every game. I
Yeah.
think games 1 and 2, Malik closed, 3 and 4, Dennis Schroeder closed, and then 5, Oster has closed. And obviously, there hasn't been like a perfect formula in terms of which 5 are on the court to close the game that has worked for them. So I think it's going to be a lot more of if Malik's hot, he's going to stay in the game. If Oster's playing great defense on Brunson and causing a lot of problems, he'll stay in the game. So it gets a little tough for us, but I do think Malik ends up being a big X factor in the game today. If he plays well, I think Pistons have a real shot. If he doesn't, it becomes big trouble.
I think that's it for this game.
All right, then let's go to the Denver Nuggets and LA Clippers. After 4 phenomenal games, well, really 3. There was that one Clippers blowout. Nuggets stitch one back. They got their blowout in Denver. Now we're going back to LA. We heard all the talk about how great that environment was at the Clippers home arena. I don't expect that to change at all. Probably be even worse. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit more into game 4, what worked, what didn't, and what to expect here. I'll start off with the Clippers offensive side because Kawhi's had a great series and you want the ball in his hands as much as possible. However, I don't think the Clippers went about it the right way. They kind of, instead of getting the ball to Kawhi, they let possession start with Kawhi, and it made it really easy for Denver to either wall up or just straight up blitz him and force the ball out of his hands. For a while, the Clippers got a little lucky. Guys were shooting ridiculously efficient off of his passes. I think they were shooting like 60% off his passes to three-pointers, which isn't something that's realistic to stand. He had 11 assists on 33 passes or 37, somewhere mid-30s. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous efficiency. But even with that, they still lost in pretty handedly fashion. So I'd almost rather his usage go up and have him taking contested looks in the mid-range. That's what got you the 2 games that you did win, rather than him kicking out to open threes to Batum and Chris Dunn. Just let Kawhi be Kawhi. Don't ask him to be the point guard. Let him be the guy who just gets buckets. That's what you got Harden for. Don't just dismiss him and have Kawhi be the one, like the point guard in this scenario. So that's a change I would recommend because that was also the first game I felt like the Clippers did that, and obviously it didn't work out. So I don't expect them to do that again.
Yeah. I think looking at the Clippers defense, I think they try to let Jokic be too much of a passer. You obviously you let that happen, they win games. I mean, you can look at all the stats when he has 10 plus assists and all that. They win easily. We got a Jamal Murray masterclass. I feel
Get
like
one
that
every
happens.
series. Every series,
Yeah.
get at least one. It's either a buzzer beater or a just absolutely bazooka 40-point game like we got last game.
Yeah, he has some ridiculous shots. Forced matchups he wanted to get, such as just attacking James Harden. I think we'll probably see more of that. Part of it was like some double screens they would set or some like off ball screening to like force a switch beforehand, getting the ball. I think it's gonna be interesting, like what kind of defensive game plan they'll try and come up with here. I think obviously force the ball out of, well, if you're going to try and limit Jokic, force the turnovers early on him because he hasn't turned the ball over that much outside that one game where they won in a blowout fashion. Limit his assists because, I mean, Nuggets don't really have a bench. All they have is Russell Westbrook, and that's about it. Somehow, Michael Porter Jr. has been playing better with the shoulder injury. And Christian Brown was getting a whole lot of boards, especially offensive rebounds. I think he had 4 of them. He led the team in rebounds in general.
Yep.
Which you don't ever see with a Jokic-led team.
No.
What adjustments defensively would you recommend here?
For the Nuggets or the Clippers?
For the Clippers.
You have to have James Harden to get up and guard because a lot of the ones that Jamal Murray was getting on him when they were attacking, it was like he basically his defender was a screen defender or screener in that scenario. He's a screen defender. He wasn't up on the screen at all. He basically just left his guy Jamal Murray's defender, which is usually Chris Dunn, on an island and basically said, hey, get over the screen. You deal with this. So
Yeah.
if you're doing that against a good screen, it's going to be a wide open look every time, especially when a guy's already shooting 70% in the game. Why are you continuing to do? You have to step up, especially when, by the way, in that, like, I get it if you have 45% usage on the offensive end and you're gassed and you want to save your energy for that. But that's what Kawhi was doing for him. He wasn't doing shit on offense in that game.
Nope.
I think Nick Wright had a stat where he said he has more games or some stat about like having more turnovers and field goals made in 26 playoff games in his career. And I think only like 3 or 4 of them were with OKC. So
Man.
that's a ridiculous stat line for a guy in the tier that James Harden is supposed to be in. And last game
Yeah.
just added to the tally.
For Denver, you think they just continue doing what they're doing?
You don't really have shit. I mean, like, all they're doing is getting the ball to Jokic and then letting him make the reads. Like, when
Yeah.
Jamal Murray had a great game, but let's be honest, it's because of how they were defending Jokic. And Jokic was just saying, oh, if you guys are going to do this, I'll just make this pass. And he realized how they were defending Jamal Murray. So he's like, okay, somebody go set a screen for Jamal Murray, and then I'll pass it to him. Like,
It just feels like they're just taking what the defense gives them. They're not really controlling or like
yeah, no,
dominating how they want to do it because they're not really doing anything special.
yeah, he's the coach and the
Spam
player.
pick and rolls, handoffs, find the open guy if they blitz. That's about it.
And it's not a criticism. I mean,
No,
would me or you
it's
do
working.
anything else if we were the coach? If we had Jokic on our team?
I mean, not really.
No, I'm saying,
Especially with
hey,
the personnel you have, like you don't really have a bench.
yeah, I'm saying, Nicola, here's the ball. If we win a finals, I'll buy you an extra horse. Go do your thing. And then
Yep.
sit back and enjoy. Like, I don't why do I need to do anything? What do I need to change? What am I gonna think of that Jokic isn't already seeing on the court? It's a pretty easy job. I don't know how Malone screwed this up.
Anything is possible at this point.
Also, I'm looking into the Kawhi stuff. So Clippers won what? Game 1 and game 4?
Clippers won.
Or no, they won game 2 and game
2 and 3.
Yep. So in those 2 games, because I'm trying to look at the correlation. Kawhi. So that was a 39-point Kawhi game. No coincidence they won that. And then the second one they had, Kawhi scored 21 points, 17 field goal attempts, lost some minutes to blowout. 3 of 6 from 3 and 4 of 7 from 3 in those 2 games. So it is in their best interest to get Kawhi going. What's been crazy for him is with no real defensive adjustment, like he's still guarding the same person and with the same defensive rule, his rebounds have gone up like crazy. He had 6 in game 1. A lot of that was because of Harden foul trouble, so he was defending Gordon and overtime. And then he had 3 in game 2, right? You think that's kind of where it's going for the series. And then games 3, 4, and 5, he has 11, 9, and 9 rebounds. So I can't put my finger on exactly what changed, if it's just, hey, the ball seems to be bouncing his way. But it is something I wanted to point out. That being said, should we get to this parlay?
Let's get to it.
All right. So we got the Clippers money line. They're going back home, back against the wall, 3-2. And I mean, we said this since the series started. The deeper this series gets, the more they're going to have a chance to play with the Nuggets offensive scheme and figure out counters and stuff like that, because there's not much else the Nuggets can do. They're only running 6 deep. Everything's going through Jokic. Figure out what reads he's making, and then the deeper the series goes, you figure out how to counter each thing. We're at game 6 now. They should have a pretty good thing. As long as Murray isn't shooting 80% from the field again, they should have a little bit more control of this game. At home, give us the Clippers. Next, pretty correlated, if you ask me. Kawhi Leonard to score 25-plus points. I do expect the Clippers to come with an adjustment to get him the ball in better scoring positions. They are attacking Jamal Murray with success, even with them losing last game. Kawhi was able to go at Murray a lot. I don't expect them to change that up. I just expect them to have people pass the ball into Kawhi, like in the post and cutting and all that stuff, rather than giving it to him 40 feet from the basket and asking him to make a play. They've only done that for one game. It was a disaster. I can't imagine they do it again. And our last play is Cade Cunningham, 10 plus assists. We've seen it all series except for game 2, where the Knicks are just blitzing the hell out of Cade Cunningham. The only thing that it doesn't really hurt us if they do this, because he still had a lot of potential assists last game, was if they keep blitzing 50 feet from the basket and he gets a bunch of secondary assists instead of actual assists. But again, the Knicks have to make that adjustment. If they do, this is going to be air. If they don't, probably still hits. But regardless, the read is about him getting blitzed, and he's getting blitzed either way. So lock that in with the boost. It's plus 460. Obviously, these parlays haven't been great to start the playoffs. But for those who are following the football season, you guys know, started a little slow there too. And then once we got hot, it felt like we couldn't miss. We were hitting everything we touched. This could be the start of that. So make sure you guys lock in. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate everything. And if you guys haven't been tuning into the live streams before we record, make sure you do that as well. Otherwise, good luck. Let's make some money. Let's enjoy some playoff basketball. We'll see you guys on the next show.